VikesNow, Dustin Baker. We are on February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day. Got a little pink action going on to commemorate the day. Pink, red, tropes of Valentine's Day. We're going to do a show today that you never really thought you'd go through, which is contemplating landing spots for Adam Thielen if he and the front office can't come to an agreement on this large cap hit. So let's set the stage. A couple disclaimers too. I think probably staying with the Vikings is the front runner for this to be resolved. He's been with the team since 2013 as a practice squatter and wants to retire a Viking. He's said that before. It's just right now they're quabbling about the cap hit. And can that be pushed into the future? Should we trade this guy? Should we outright release him? That's where we're at. Thielen had 716 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns in 2022. It's up to you to decide if that's good enough for a WR2 to complement Justin Jefferson. I think TJ Hawkinson also stole a lot of his targets, which was good because Hawkinson was marvelous after coming over from the Detroit Lions. But yeah, the debate right now is whether or not Thielen as a WR2 is a sustainable thing. He thinks he is. He has said a couple times or implied that he still has a lot to give, a lot left in the tank. And it is wildly unsurprising that he says that. And I just don't know if Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell agree. We shall see based on this resolution. But I want to go through 5 what I think are the top landing spots for Thielen if he is indeed traded or is released. And if he was released, it'd probably be sometime this summer because the cap savings is humongous versus pre-June 1st and post-June 1st. So keep that in mind. If indeed Thielen was released, it probably wouldn't happen until this summer. But they're working on his deal, particularly the cap hit. I think he's slated to earn like $14 million in terms of a base salary, but it's that damn cap hit that the Vikings created. They caused this. They pushed his money into the future at this time last year. So we're here to chat about paying the piper. Now, Thielen said before the Super Bowl, I think on the Pat McAfee show, that he wants to retire a Viking, but I got a big cap hit. So we're working through it. Indeed, those conversations are happening right now. Everybody recognizes it, that $19.9 million, which is his cap hit, is too much for a team that's underwater by $23 million at the moment. And you start looking at the pieces on the roster that have the most fat in terms of the money. And his cap hit is one of them. And so it's incredibly apropos that he's been targeted for some sort of discussion about lowering that thing down from $19.9 million to whatever it may be. Whether or not Thielen is back as a WR2 or WR3 is a separate discussion. Again, it's up to you to decide if they should draft a rookie in round 1 or if they get back into round 2. Is a WR2 to either start immediately or be groomed as Jefferson's WR2 in free agency? The options really aren't too exciting. Those guys are going to cost 15, 16 million because of the new wide receiver market. So if indeed the Vikings move on from Thielen as a WR2, I would advocate drafting somebody and starting that train because most of the free agents you'd be overpaying, in my opinion. All right, so let's go over some of these. These are spots that Thielen could land if he's not with the Vikings in 2023. I think it's a reasonable conversation to have. I don't think it's a shoo-in that he's back, but because he's Mr. Minnesota, has a story that you couldn't script in Hollywood, he'll probably be back, but if he doesn't, here's where I'll think he's going to land. So I'm going to rank these starting. I actually ranked these for a change. 5 is the least likely, and 1 is, screams he's probably going to go there. So starting out in ascending order here, number 5 would be the Houston Texans. Why on earth would Thielen go to the Houston Texans? Well, they have something that he wants, and that's targets in an offense. I think, even though the DeMeco Ryans there, I think it's safe to prognosticate that Brandon Cooks will finally shove his way out and go to a better team. It seems he's been disgruntled there for quite some time. Even if you have Cooks, Thielen could still go there. But after Cooks, it's Nico Collins, John Mechie, Philip Dorsett, and Amari Rodgers. Probably the worst wide receiving core in the league. If Thielen's true main focus goal here is to get targets, to prove, doggone it, that he's still got it, going to the Texans should afford him targets, probably from a quarterback drafted with the second overall pick or whatever tomfoolery goes on with first-round trades there. I don't think it's a wise decision for him to slide down to Screwston and join the Texans, because next year at its ceiling will probably be, 6-11 type of season. That'd be considered good for a first-year head coach and a probable rookie quarterback. But if you want to showcase that, you're still the man at what's he going to be, 33 when the season starts, go find a team that has targets available, because Collins, Mechie, Dorsett, and Amari Rogers does not scream, monsters of rock wide receivers. So Houston is number 5 on my list because you get attention there. You'll get the ball. Number 4 is a little goofy. I'm going to have it both ways. It's whoever Aaron Rodgers' team is. Yes, that includes the Packers, perhaps the Jets, perhaps the Raiders. Rodgers is either doing right now or is going to do his darkness isolation retreat, where he evidently hangs out in a house, total darkness, no music, no social media, no TV, nada. I guess there are slots where you drop the food in so he can still eat, and then for 4 days he thinks about stuff. It sounds like solitary confinement to me, but that's neither here nor there. But he said this. I'm not bloviating or exaggerating this. This is what he said he's doing, and that will propel him to a decision on whether to retire, rejoin the green and gold team, or ask for a trade, which the Packers weirdly seem pretty open to. And I think it's not going to be in the NFC. You can write that down. So it'll be an AFC team. And looking around the landscape of the AFC, I think the teams that would welcome him with open arms are the Jets, because, boom, Nathaniel Hackett now works there as offensive coordinator, and then Raiders because of the obvious Devontae Adams connection. So I think that because Thielen and Rodgers are friends, I don't know if you knew that or not, they seem to be pals, I think that it is a reasonable prediction that Thielen would land with whatever team Aaron Rodgers quarterbacks. I don't know if he'd want the stink of going to the Packers right after the Vikings and kind of sullying his legacy, his resume, this storybook career. But, if he was pissed about this contract negotiation break off, where things went kaput, then maybe he does. Maybe he'll want to do the opposite of what usually happens for Vikings players, sticking it to the Packers, like Za'Darius last year. Maybe he'll want to do that to the Vikings. So I think number 4 on my list is whatever team Rodgers quarterback, that could be a Thielen landing spot. Number 3 is the New England Patriots. Now you're going to say, Thielen and Belichick don't get along. They're both fiery competitors, and I think they've had 2 dust-ups in the past, which is really weird because I don't know that Belichick goes and seeks out confrontations. I mean, he's not overly jovial. But yeah, once or twice he and Thielen have gotten into it. But when they got into it in 2018, Belichick quickly squashed all the media stuff and says, no, I think this guy's awesome. He's a competitor. He's fiery. And because the Patriots are about to lose potentially Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar, both those guys are free agents, Thielen could land there. And doesn't Thielen just seem like the type of wide receiver that the Patriots usually covet and say, that's my guy? It would work a lot better for the theory if Brady was there. However, the Patriots, outside of Randy Moss, how many years ago now? 16 years ago. They never spend a lot of resources on wide receivers. They prefer their tight ends. But Thielen seems like a talent who could reasonably be plopped into Belichick's offense and do the thing. It's kind of like the Texans. He'd have to get targets because you wouldn't have Myers there. Nelson Aguilar's gone, and that leaves what? I always call him Jason Bourne, but that's not his name. There's only a couple other wide receivers there on the Patriots that are WR2 caliber. So Thielen, just kind of like that Texans theory, could get targets with a coach that evidently admires him. And that's number 3. Number 2 is the Denver Broncos. This one, there's about 3 things why here. George Paton is the in charge. He's a little maligned right now because of the Russell Wilson deal. The shine kind of faded off George Paton after last year, I think righteously so. However, he spent forever in the Vikings front office as a Rick Spielman lieutenant. If any general manager in the league, not named Rick Spielman, who writes for the 33rd team, knows Adam Thielen, it would be George Paton. However, the Broncos don't have this big fat-ass need for wide receiver. They've got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Hamler if he ever stays healthy. So they don't really need a wide receiver. But Tim Patrick was lost for the season last year. Hamler is always hurt. Verdict's still out on Jeudy, and Sutton, we think, is pretty damn good if Russell Wilson gets his poop in a group. But because of the George Paton connection, I think Thielen could end up with the Broncos. And then still listed on the Broncos website, I'm not sure he'll make the cut all the way into the summer, as passing game coordinator is the one and only Clint Kubiak, who worked for the Vikings for quite some time and offensively coordinated the team in 2021. So there is a coaching connection there if son Kubiak stays in the saddle in Sean Payton's system. And then George Paton. He should know everything about Adam Thielen from head to toe, and if Thielen gets released from this deal or is traded, I think the Broncos would be the second likeliest team to acquire his services. Now, number 1, the Cleveland Browns. What do you think? You can see where I'm going with this, right? Kevin Stefanski is the head coach of the Browns and has been so since the 2020 season. He got there, they won a playoff game, beat the shit out of the Steelers, all was well. Then they kind of shot themselves in the public relations foot by doing this Deshaun Watson thing, quarterback who wasn't very good for the last, 5 games, whatever it ended up being. But I think the plan is the full offseason, they think that Watson will come back and return to his Pro Bowl self. But Kevin Stefanski, just like the George Paton speech, he knows Thielen, and if Thielen is looking for life after Minnesota, it would not be surprising one iota if Stefanski's like, yes, I've seen what that guy can do, put him in my offense, let's have him complement Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones. Thielen would be a wonderful WR3, quasi-WR2 in that system. On top of the Stefanski connection is the Kwesi Adolpho-Mensah connection. Kwesi worked in Cleveland for, I think it was 2 years after leaving the 49ers after 6. And Andrew Berry is the general manager for the Browns. So Kwesi and Mr. Berry know each other well. If there was a trade that was to shake down, they got each other on speed dial, and I think Thielen could reasonably go to a team that has ties between the general manager of the Vikings and his former place of employment. On top of that, Stefanski runs the show altogether and presumably the offense, because he was the offensive coordinator for the Vikings. So from head to toe, the 5 that I consider the most likely, there are 32 teams in the NFL, so if it pops up in 6 weeks that Thielen's going to Washington, baby, he's going to be a commander, it won't be the first time that I'm wrong or look like a dumbass. But what I consider the 5 likeliest are the Houston Texans at the bottom of the list. Aaron Rodgers teams, you pick out which one it is. Thielen might go there. The New England Patriots, Denver Broncos, and then because of Kevin Stefanski and Kwesi Adolpho-Mensah's ties to Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns. We'll be back with Josh Fry tomorrow talking more about the offseason stuff. That's all I got, and Skol, baby.